this class is all about on-camera flash. So we're not going to go into off-camera stuff, we're just talking about using your flash on your camera. So what does on-camera flash mean?
What does it mean?
Well, it means keeping your flash on the camera as opposed to off the camera. You can use it pointing up, pointing forwards, at an angle. It basically just means anything that's not off-camera flash, where you have it triggered from a trigger on the camera or another flash on the camera that has an internal trigger. And that's a whole much more complicated setup, which we'll go through in another lesson. So this one's all about on-camera flash.
So it has to be on the camera to count as on-camera flash.
Got that? On the camera.
And here's someone modelling an on-camera flash right now.
It's me! So, as you can see in that picture, I have got my Godox. It is a TT350F, which I've got right here. And you can get these specific to, I think, pretty much any camera. So I've got the Fuji specific ones. I've got 2 of these. I've also got 2 TT685Fs as well, which are much, much bigger. Much bigger! So the big one is really, really heavy. The small one is lovely and light. When you're using something like Fuji, like a mirrorless, and the camera's already light, you don't want to have the big top-heavy flash on. So I use the small 350 most of the time, walking around a dark reception, that sort of thing. I'll use the big one if I want to do a multi-flash setup, like, 4 flashes on the go, doing different things. But just for on-camera flash, the little one's enough. If you need a bit more power, you might want to get the bigger one. So I like having both options. I have 2 of each.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because if you're shooting a long wedding day, you want to be comfortable. And the more comfortable you are, the better you're going to be as the day goes on rather than getting tired and bottoming out.
Yeah, we really, really hate when your hand gets really tired from the heavy flash. So yes, we love the little 350. It works a treat. So when do we use on-camera flash? We use it when people are indoors and they've got no light on their faces, or if they're backlit, like if they've got a window behind them in the daytime, and to expose their faces properly would mean blowing out those windows and looking pretty bright and awful. So we'll light up their faces.
So in dark rooms in general as well. So if there's not enough light in the room, get the flash out.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just a murky room. We'll show you some examples of this, but the room might not be dark, but it's just not very beautiful light in that room. We just use a little bit of on-camera flash just to pop a bit of light into their faces, and it's pretty unintrusive as well.
And with the following exceptions, though.
We don't use it during prep, simply because prep is not important enough. You could get creative during prep with flash, sure, but we don't generally use it. We'll ask a makeup artist to face the bride towards the window. We'd rather move around the scene than be really intrusive with a flash. People aren't used to us yet. They're not used to their photo being taken, let alone a flash being in their face. So we definitely don't like to use flash during prep. We also don't use it during the ceremony for the exact same reasons. It's really intrusive. I have used it during a ceremony in one particular room in Brighton Town Hall. It was small, dark, had orange windows. It was just ugly. They would have the couple facing their backs to the windows and everything. It was the worst, most unflattering room. And I shot in there once without flash and thought never again. So when I use flash during a ceremony, I use it, I shoot more sparingly. I'll be very, very careful. I won't just shoot away like I would normally. So I don't want to go flash, flash, flash. I've also used flash during a ceremony when I did a wedding at a cinema. So it was literally pitch black. So I used a bit of flash there too. So we'll go 3 different ways you can use on-camera flash for these sorts of things, but we generally don't use it during the ceremony. Also, we don't use it outdoors in the daytime. We would prefer open shade if we need flattering light on people in the daytime. We'll just find ways, face them towards the sun. If it's a really dark day, face them towards where the sun would be. We just find it looks like flash in the daytime when you use flash in the daytime. It's a certain look and we don't have that in our style. So
basically, yeah, for us and the way we shoot, we use the flash as little as possible, actually.
So the easiest and best way of using on-camera flash is to bounce it.
Bounce it.
You can do this for a really clean look that also shows the context of the room as well as the subject. As you can see here in this photo, you can see the faces behind them as well as their own faces. So it lights up the whole room, basically.
So bouncing it is pointing it anywhere but directly at your subject, basically.
Yeah, you're bouncing it off something. So you're bouncing it off a ceiling, off a wall, off another person. I'm joking. You're bouncing off something so that the flash hits the ceiling and spreads downwards, and it just gives you a lovely clean light. So when you bounce, basically the light is hitting a surface and spreading it out, making it much more even. So, you walk into a room that has a nice white ceiling and you know that it's going to be the dream for bouncing flash. Often we get things that are not perfectly lovely white ceilings. So we'll go through those sorts of instances later. But basically bouncing means that, you bounce it off a surface. What we love to do is we get out the white card, which is in your flash. So not this piece of plastic, which is a diffuser. We don't ever use that diffuser. We just use the white card. You pop it up, and not only does the flash then bounce off the ceiling, but it bounces off the white card too, and it throws the light forward onto people's faces, which gives you a really, really lovely clean look. If you do it without the bounce card, it just gives you a slightly less clean overall consistent light on their face, basically.
Yeah, and it's also harder to do because if you think about it, if this is pointing behind our heads to the ceiling, it's going to vary depending on what shape the ceiling is or what colour. So if it's a dark ceiling, it's not going to work so well. Or if the distance to the ceiling is, it's really high. None of those things are going to make the flash work as well. So we like to have it pointing this way with the card up, just because that's an easier way of working with it.
We will go into more detail about how we deal with difficult ceilings and stuff a bit later as well, though. I know that's a problem that a lot of people have, so we're definitely going to cover that.
So these then are our suggested settings to get you started. So we'll underexpose the ambient light, and then we'll keep the shutter speed at the sync speed of the flash. So usually that's going to be 1/250th or 1/200th of a second. And then we'll kind of go from there.
So yeah, basically, when you slightly underexpose a room that has some lighting in it, generally you can start your camera on, yes, as Todd said, the sync speed of 1/250th. On a Fuji, it just says 250. It doesn't say 1 over. Then you can go wide open, 1.4, 1.8, 2 if you want. And the ISO can be 1 or 2 stops underexposed. So you don't want it perfectly exposed, because if you're exposing for their skin, then it's going to overexpose other things like that window behind them, and your flash isn't going to be very useful. So you want to underexpose a little bit. So when we say 1 stop, we mean 3 clicks on your dial. So when you're maybe you're slowing down your ISO by 1 stop. So you'd go to your ISO and you go click, 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 and that takes you 1 stop underexposed. Or you can do another 3 to go 2 stops underexposed. And then you'll find your scene looks a bit murky through the camera if you've got one that will show you your exposure on the camera, or your meter will show as a little bit underexposed. That's what you want. That's the dream scenario. So it's as simple as that. If you start with these settings, basically you just go from there. So we will put our flash on to 1/64, because that's kind of in the middle. Maybe we'll start on 1/32. Basically 1/1 is full power, really, really, really bright. 1/128 is the weakest power, so it's 128th of full power. So 1/64 is 64th, a 64th of full power. So it's kind of in the middle. So we generally start there. There is no hard and fast rule. We will just underexpose it a little bit, whack the flash onto manual at a middle random setting with the bounce card up, and we will see how that looks. So if it's too dark, we'll up the flash power or the ISO. If it's too bright, we'll lower the flash power, and we'll just play with it from there until it looks good and clean. We've got some troubleshooting at the end of the video for various different situations where you might be like, it's too bright, it's too dark, and we'll have a look at how you can fix those. So first of all, while we're talking about these flash settings, I will go through the flash. This is a Godox TT685F, and you turn it on here with this switch. Then you've got the mode button on the far left. So you click that and it takes you to M for manual, and you look for 1/64 and you're ready to go. That's basically all you need for now. And then you can press the up down button for the speed. So the second button in, you press that for, not speed, for the power. And you dial this up and down to make the power go up and down.
So here's some examples then of with flash and without.
So yes, this is the exact same moment, and I was literally testing it for you guys at a wedding last weekend. She had the window light behind her. As you can see, when I was underexposing slightly, it just looks really murky and gross. I did edit this photo as if, not this particular one, this example, but I edited it to see how it would look edited, and it looked okay, but it didn't look as clean as when I edited the one with Flash, and you can see it just looks clean from the off. I actually brought the flashed photo into Lightroom. It automatically put on my preset, and I haven't touched it. This is literally how it came. No edit needed, whereas you can see the other one is going to need a lot of work, so you might as well just pop that flash up there and just make that photo look good from the start. As you can see, the settings are pretty much the same on both of them. The ISO is a little bit different. I don't know why that is. Maybe I just wanted to make it a little bit darker. Maybe my flash was too bright when I did put it on. But as you can see, I was on roughly the maximum sync speed of 200. 1.8 because it was a dark room, ISO 4 or 500 because it wasn't that dark and I didn't need to put the ISO up that high. Here's another example. So again, there's no window light on his face, it's all behind. And as you can see, putting a flash on has just cleaned up the entire image, even the people behind him. And it's just given the photo a warm look.
And obviously try to be consistent. So if you're going to take a shot in this kind of room with flash, then take all of the rest of them like that too, so they all fit in together.
Yeah, that's it. So we obviously were walking around this room, and as you can see behind them, it's daylight and there are windows at the other side of the room. So we would then have to not flash when we were that side, but it looked the same, which is nice. We want that consistency. So the flash becomes your window light. So I didn't actually want to use too much flash, which is why my ISO is at 1600. I wanted to let in enough ambient because it was daytime to match the ones where I was taking it from the other side of the room. So the flash just gave them as much light as the window would have given them. Here's another example. So same room as before. The ISO is a bit higher again. So it's a very similar outcome to the other one, but with a much higher ISO, so less flash. And it's basically how much flash power do you want to use and how much ISO do you want to use. I can pump the ISO pretty high on the X-T3. So I don't mind using high ISO. It keeps my battery power down because I want to conserve it for later without having to charge my batteries. So yeah, that's a really just, it's that sort of exposure triangle thing, but you're adding in a fourth thing. So it's an exposure square. Here's another example of a wedding venue that we've shot there a lot of times. They always position the couple with their backs to the windows. And every time. And it's a beach venue, so it's really bright outside. There's nothing blocking that beautiful bright sun because it's just the sea out there. And so, yeah, people are, especially the head table, they're in complete darkness. And it's annoying. So yeah, we flash during the speeches, which we don't love to do. But at this venue we always do, and you can see it makes such a difference because their faces are actually showing. I didn't have to blow out the windows. They are blown out a bit because it was so bright, but if I wasn't using flash, those windows, you wouldn't even see the window frames. It would be so blown out. So let's talk about TTL.
What's TTL?
TTL means through the lens. It basically means that it's looking at what lens you're on, what distance, using your focus, using what distance you are from the subject, and it decides how high to go with the power. I think it even sends out a little pre-flash, so it knows exactly how far away you are. Even I think with the bounce, it will know. And that's great. And it's great if you're in like rapidly changing light and everything's a different distance, everything's a different height and all these sorts of things. Then it's great if you need to be changing your flash all the time, changing your power all the time, you might as well be on TTL. But because of that little pre-flash, and because I find it errs on the side of too bright, it basically uses a ton of battery. So I want to be in control of the flash. Just like we shoot manual, I like to use manual flash. I like to be in control. I like to tell it, no, I'm going to use a high ISO and I'm going to use the minimal amount of flash, and I don't want it to be as bright as you think it needs to be. And if you're going to go up and down on the plus-minus dial on TTL, you might as well be in manual mode, because actually I think in manual mode, when you're on there, I don't think you even need to press the up-down button to make the power brighter and darker. You just need to use the dial, actually. I think I said the button earlier, but I think you just need to use the dial. It's in my muscle memory, and I'm remembering that I don't touch anything. But with the TTL, you do have to press the button first and then wind the dial, so it's actually an extra press.
Yeah, so if this sounds complicated at first, don't worry, because it does just become muscle memory after a while.
Exactly. Like, you'll find yourself with your flash on the camera and you're like, oh, damn, it's too dark. And you'll go, and you'll know exactly what to do. Like, literally, you turn it with your thumb, brighter, darker, brighter, darker. I often don't even look at the number that's on there. I just dial it a little bit, take a photo. If it's too bright, I'll dial it back a little bit. Like, that's pretty much the best way of using it. Like, it's the easiest way, because if you tell yourself, I need to be on 1/32 plus 0.3, of an extra whatever, like, you're going to go mad trying to get it exactly right. Just set it up until it looks about right. And again, the troubleshooting at the end will go through things where it doesn't look right and will help you out with that. So the big one, ceilings and outside where there is no ceiling. So what about when you have a really, really dark ceiling, or you have no ceilings, or you're outside? What we do is we use the white card and we tilt the flash forward just 1 or 2 clicks. So you can see the flash is pointing upwards. If you go click, click, it goes forward a little bit. And then a little bit more light goes towards that person. That's all we've done in these photos. As you can see, the bottom photos, we've got red walls, which is not great, because obviously that's going to just bounce red all over their faces. But there was also a black ceiling. This was a burlesque club. It was really hard work. So I just did exactly what I'm doing now, tilted it forwards a bit. I probably had it on quite a high power, I don't know, to basically get rid of any of those colour casts. Your flash is white, and that will just, the more powerful it is, the more it's going to get rid of colour casts. If I'd had my ISO on 6400, for example, and my flash on very, very lightly, very, very low power, you would have got much more red colour cast in their faces. As you can see in the table in the back, those people have got really red faces. So you need more flash power to counteract that, basically. So when you have dark walls, dark ceilings, red walls or whatever, tilt it forward a bit, make sure that white card is up, and use a bit more flash power. Also look at where it's bouncing off. Is it bouncing off a weird ceiling? Is it bouncing off a red wall? Don't bounce it off a red wall. Bounce it off something else if you've got the choice. Then increase and decrease your power depending on whether you're still getting a colour cast or not. Or you can use TTL for these weird ceilings as well. So sometimes you get an odd shaped ceiling where it's like lower at one side and higher at the other side. So you can use TTL because it will know that you're closer to the ceiling or not as close to the ceiling. Now, here's an example of weird ceilings. These photos, the top photo is literally a test shot I was taking, but I've shown it to you guys as an example in this lesson.
What a lovely test shot it is.
Yeah, people's backs, excellent. I'm only showing you this test shot because it's the only photo I had that showed the weird ceiling. So what we've got there, above the table where the family sat, is a low bit of ceiling, and on either side was an archway. So not only did I have a higher bit, but it was also facing one way and facing the other way at the same time. Like, if I pointed my flash slightly towards one bit of the arch, it would be different to the other bit of the arch where it would be bouncing completely away behind me. Or when I was under the lower bit, I had to decrease my power, all those sorts of things. This ceiling was a nightmare. And I think I ended up bouncing off the wall a little bit, or just basically what I did here was, first of all, of course, panic. And then I just moved the flash head around. So I just was just like this all over the place. You can turn it this way as well. And I was just playing for a while just to see exactly what would work. And then I pretty much stuck to that position and shot from there. So basically play around, put the flash power up and down, move the flash head around, look at what it's bouncing off. If it's bouncing off something that points away from your people, then look at bouncing it off somewhere else. It's just it's a matter of trial and error with these sorts of things. As you can see, I've got more light on the people up close than I have at the back, because that weird bit of ceiling was blocking them off. In that case, you can just edit it with a gradient or something if you've got that much of a horrible ceiling situation.
Yeah, and likewise you can white balance stuff out if you've got a bit of a colour cast too.
So the dance floor, this is a big one because you can pretty much not use flash on a dance floor because it's so dark. So the first piece of advice would be to pick a flash style and stick to it for consistency. As you can see here, we've got 2 entirely different styles from the same wedding, and we are basically not going to deliver one of the styles because it just doesn't fit. It's not consistent unless you maybe start the evening with one style and then finish it with another style because the evening moves on that way. That's fine, but generally I wouldn't want to mix those two in together.
Yeah, and likewise, the reason to use a flash at all on the dance floor is generally because either the light is so low or it's very, very inconsistent. So if you've got like a disco ball set up or your typical disco lights, that's going to look terrible when you actually look over it. So that's why we kind of complicate things by using flash there.
Yeah, we want to just completely get rid of that stuff. Like those horrible red swishy DJ lights. No one needs that. So we just have a flash that's bright enough to completely wash it out. We want to have control over how our photos look. So these photos were taken at our first wedding party back after 18 months off thanks to COVID. As you can see in the background, they are still wearing their masks. It was the only wedding we did where they had to still legally wear masks. They weren't allowed to dance floor, but they danced anyway. And because we'd had 18 months off, we had no idea what we were doing with flash. We had forgotten completely. And that's why we've got these two different styles here, because we were like, what do we normally do? How did we do it? We can't remember. We were just all over the place. And we worked out that we really like using bounce flash for the dance floor. So basically everything we've just talked about with the bounce flash, that's what we love to do. You can make it a little bit darker than you would for maybe speeches or something because you want a bit of that ambient in there. But yeah, everything we just said is what we would do. I've got my settings here so you can see them. The top photo is that sort of rabbit in the headlights with the flash pointing with the white card in and the flash pointing directly at them. So everything behind them is dark because the light is only hitting the person in front of you, which is a good look for dance floors that are empty. So because you don't really see much of what's going on behind them. I've got my aperture set to 4.5 because when I do that look, I underexpose it an awful lot, as you can see from the background exposure. And when I shoot like that, I like to put it on manual focus, so because of that I need a relatively narrow aperture. The other photo is 2.8 because I was bouncing it and I could see a bit more of the room's ambient light. I also put it on 2500 ISO because I wanted that ambient light in there because it was a beautiful warm barn. So let's talk about the rabbit in the headlights look on the dance floor. I don't know what it's actually called, direct flash maybe, but we like to call it rabbit in the headlights.
That's what we always call it.
Yeah. So basically what this means is you have pointed your flash at them. So it's still on the camera, but you've bent this down and it's pointing at them. Oops. And your bounce card is tucked away completely. So what about blinding people and annoying them? Honestly, they're usually drunk and they don't notice. The DJ lights will also be blinding them. Unless they're actually looking at the flash, it won't blind them. And again, they're usually drunk. Even when when they're looking at my camera and I flash them, no one's ever complained or gone, oh no. And if they do, so what? Move on to another person, because these photos are really easy to take and it just makes the dance floor photos just like super quick. You don't have to worry about focusing on anything. You can get the action as it happens. So I really like the rabbit in the headlights look for the dance floor. So, as I said, it's really, really perfect for a half-empty dance floor because we generally zoom in the flash, which we'll go into. We zoom it in, which gives it a darker vignette around the edges of the photo, which kind of blocks everything out. So you could have like pretty much no one on the dance floor and you wouldn't know because it's kind of blocked out because the people in the background are so dark, all that sort of thing. You're only really focusing on the person that's closest to you. So for this rabbit in the headlights look, my shutter's usually around 6 to 50. So that's a 1/6 to a 50th of a second. I put 6 and 50 in brackets because that's how it shows on the Fuji. It just shows the number 6, doesn't say 1/6. That is a slow shutter. So you'd want probably like 1/200 to get anything without any motion blur. So it's quite a slow shutter. That lets in a lot of ambient light. It lets you make light streaks because the shutter's open for long enough to give you those streaks of light. So of course, if you want more ambient light and you want more streaks and longer streaks, you go slower. Obviously, if you don't have a light source, like I've got some fairy lights in the background, we've got lights from the band, then you're not going to get any streaks. So do make sure you've got some light sources there. If you have too much, like in the way of light streaks and movement in the photo, then go faster on your shutter speed and add ISO or flash power to make up for that. So if you're going faster on shutter, obviously it's going to get darker. So you want to make up for that. So ISO or flash, depending on whether you want more ambient light to show or, you know, what kind of look you're going for. I have my aperture to about 5.6 to 11 because when I'm shooting this way, I am underexposing massively because I'm literally directing my flash at them. So that's going to put a lot of light on that person. So you need to really, really underexpose. It's going to be basically black on the back of your camera if you can see a preview of the photos. At this point on a Fuji, I actually change my preview to show only the white balance. So it doesn't actually show me the exposure anymore, which means I can see the image.
This is so important for shooting flash, and actually we usually try to assign this to a button on the camera as well.
It is assigned to a button, which is why I can't find it now. Okay, so on a Fuji, it's in the wrench menu, and it is under screen setting, and it's called preview exposure / white balance in manual mode. So I have assigned that to a button so that I can turn off the preview. I don't see the exposure. It allows me to see the room through my screen, which means I can then either focus on something or, see what's in the frame, without having to then go focus. I also often turn off my focus, so I turn it on to manual focus anyway. Because I'm on up to F11, as long as I manually focus it like a meter or so in front of me, then it's going to pretty much get everything in focus. So then you don't have to worry about focusing. You don't have to worry about that split second before taking the shot. You just snap and it takes it. And because you're on such a wide aperture, it will get everything in. And basically set up your camera so that it gives you the right amount of ambient, the right amount of flash on them. And then you can just go. That's it. You can just keep on shooting. I keep my ISO pretty low, but do play around with this if it's too dark, because you might want to add in some ambient but without adding too much flash. So if your person is like really quite brightly flashed, but the background, you maybe want some more background light in, up the ISO, down the flash. However, if your shutter speed is too slow, by lowering the flash power, you're going to have blur. So make sure your flash power is bright enough to freeze movement, because it is the flash that freezes this guy. You can see the movement in the lights. You can see that my shutter's open a while, but he is completely sharp. And that is because the flash has frozen him. So that needs to be fast enough. Again, this is in the troubleshooting section at the end. So for your flash settings, put your flash on manual, dial it to around 1/32. So again, try different intensities if it's too dark or too bright. And the direction of the flash should be pointing forward, so you're blasting your subject in the face and momentarily blinding them. That is how you get the good photos. Zoom the flash in as far as it will go. So on this one, it goes up to 200. And the reason I zoom in the flash when I'm doing these photos is because it gives you that vignette that I talked about that basically makes the edges go nice and dark.
Yeah, that's really key to draw attention to your subject. So if it's zoomed out, you're just going to get a wide illumination area and it won't look like flash at all.
It won't look good either. It doesn't look as good to not zoom in the flash. Try it at your next wedding. Try not zooming it in and then zoom it as far as it will go, and you'll see a massive difference. And that is the creative element of what we do here. We're not just trying to light a room, we're trying to show the subject, we're trying to tell a story and tell people what to look at, and that's how we do that using the zoom. So to zoom it in, you want to go to the zoom button, the first button on the end here, and that will highlight the zoom at the top. And you want to take it to the maximum, which on this one, because it's a Fuji, is 133, which is equivalent to 200 because it's not full frame. I've made a typo here. It says TT585 is actually TT685, the flash that I've got here. So yes, zoom it in, it will give you that look. Try different intensities of zoom as well to see what kind of look you want. Now let's talk about those light streaks. So they can really make a photo look quite cool, quite dynamic, quite exciting, quite colourful. It all depends on how many there are, what size they are, all of that sort of thing. So I don't like the pinprick ones where they go across everyone's faces. I like the thicker ones, I think they look really good. So do watch out for fairy lights. And basically the slower your shutter, the more light streaks, the longer light streaks you'll have. And also moving your camera as you take the shot is what gives you the actual streaks. If you stay really still, you're going to get a little bit of movement, but you're not going to get the streak. So it's okay to move your camera while taking the shot because the flash freezes the subject. So the person that is straight in front of you, or all the people in front of your flash, are going to stay not, because they're not light sources. They're not gonna blur, but the light sources will blur and give you some movement. So that's quite fun and exciting. So make sure your flash is bright enough to freeze the subject and you move it around enough to give yourself a nice light streak. What do you want, Loki?
How dare you interrupt?
If you're finding that the flash is too strong and it's overexposing the whole photo, you can lower the ISO, which will then lower the ambient light in the background. You can speed up the shutter, which will mean you won't get as long light streaks, or use a narrower aperture as well, which is a bit more tricky if you want to just use it in manual focus mode and not really look at what you're shooting. I love being in manual focus mode because I can literally go bop, 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 bop and take pictures without even looking. And I know that the flash will freeze them. I know that I don't have to focus on anything. So you could do that. Also, you can up and down the flash, but, you don't want to lower your flash so much that it doesn't freeze your subject. So again, it's that exposure square that I invented earlier of getting those 4 things right: the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, and the flash power. So play with all of those and see what looks good. Also, if the room is already bright, this will not work. You have to be in the dark because you're going on such a slow shutter speed and using flash, that there's no amount of low ISO or narrow aperture that's gonna fix that. You need a dark room.
And another consideration here is the creative choice about it. So do you like the look of light streaks like this, and is it something your clients will like as well? I've had people say they're not into it at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I personally love them when they're used in a way like this, where it gives it energy to the photo. But I don't like it where you get a streak of fairy lights, for example, across somebody's face. That annoys me. So if I'm going to go with the look, again, I'll commit to the look for the whole evening, and I'll make sure I am not facing a light source that is pinprick lights like fairy lights. I'll make sure it's a bigger light source. So that's setting up your flash and your camera for those dancing photos. But sometimes we have like 30 seconds of people dancing before they all get off the dance floor and carry on with what they were doing. And the dance floor's empty and you're like, I didn't get any good photos. So how do you deal with that? What we do is we set up 2 cameras. We'll have one with first dance settings. So maybe that is just a bounce flash that we're using for first dance. We ask our couples, we say, what are you doing for your first dance? And if they say, we're doing 10 seconds and then, we're going to get everyone on the dance floor, then I'm not going to set up some elaborate multi-flash off-camera flash setup. I'm just going to do a bounce. So if they are doing something elaborate, I could get some really cool photos and I'll set up my off-camera flashes. That's fine. And I'll have this one camera ready to go with those settings. Then I'll have my other camera on my other hip ready for dancing. So the flash is pointing forwards, the settings are on. I just have each one ready to go so that I can just pick up the other camera and start shooting the dancing straight away and not miss a single precious second of that.
So let's do some troubleshooting now.
Yes, so these are lots of things that come up for us and for other people. So we're going to go through them all.
What happens if my shot is too shiny or bright?
You turn the flash power down. I do find that if it's looking kind of shiny, it's the flash that's the problem. So turn that down. If it's just too bright in general, you can put your ISO down. But don't forget, if you're putting your flash power down, it might be necessary to put the ISO up a little bit to compensate. So you don't want your photo looking shiny, but then if it's not bright enough, you need to do something.
What if it's too dark and murky?
So basically, you're using your flash and it's still looking a bit murky. What you can do is turn the flash power up and also make sure your white card is pointing up as well and it's not tucked into the camera, into the flash still.
What happens if we've got dance floor lights casting a colour?
This happens a lot. You need to basically overpower it with your flash, and that's pretty much the only way you can deal with that. So I would put the ISO down and the flash power up further. I also often ask the DJ to turn off the lights, and they always say yes because I explain why. People don't like doing anything unless you say why. They think, oh, you're messing with my DJ system, my set. If you explain why, they're very happy to do it. So I just say to them, during the first dance, the way I'm going to shoot it means that your lights, while they look gorgeous, are going to give my couple spots on their faces because, a photo will freeze that moment. And if that moment has spots on their faces, that's there forever. Do you mind if just during the first dance, we turn the lights off? And as soon as everyone's dancing again, because if you're doing rabbit in the headlights, those disco lights don't matter. As soon as everyone's dancing again, please do feel free to turn them back on. But just for the first dance, do you mind if we have them off? And they always say yes because they understand why, because they're going to have spots on their faces. And that's just an absolute nightmare to edit.
What happens if I can't zoom my flash? So if I'm turning my wheel and it won't zoom?
So if it won't zoom, it's often the white card or the diffuser. They need to be clicked in. So this diffuser here and this white card, if your diffuser's out and your white card's out, even a little bit if they're out, it won't zoom, which is a weird thing, but it won't zoom while they're out. So make sure it clicks into place and then your flash will zoom. Also check that your camera isn't in HSS mode, we find a lot of our settings on the flash, so it could be the zoom, also the power on the small ones won't go above 1/16 unless it's not in HSS mode. It's got to be in front or rear curtain sync, which we can find on the Fuji. I don't know about other cameras, they may not have this problem, but certainly it is a problem on the Fuji. So go into the flash settings on your Fuji camera, go to flash function setting, and then where it says sync, click OK and go to first curtain or second curtain, not HSS.
What happens if the background's too dark?
If you want a lighter background, turn your ISO up because that will give you more ambient light, but turn your flash down because otherwise you're just adding too much light into it, unless it's obviously perfectly well lit with the flash as it is.
What about if the flash is not firing?
So this happened to me at the first wedding I ever shot with Fuji. It turned out my camera was in electronic shutter mode and it didn't like that. You have to be in mechanical shutter mode for the flash to fire. Also check that your batteries aren't running low because they run low pretty damn quickly if you're shooting away using your flash. So there's a red light on your flash. Then you can see it here. That red light means you're ready to go. If that red light isn't showing, you're not ready to go. And if it takes ages to come on in between shots, that means your battery is getting really, really low and you need to charge it.
What if I'm getting motion blur?
So if you're getting motion blur and you're doing the rabbit in the headlights look, then you need to increase your shutter a bit and or turn up your flash power because the flash is what freezes your subject. If you're getting motion blur just doing bounce flash, like pointing upwards at the ceiling in a normal room, then you definitely need to increase your shutter speed because that's why you'll be getting that.
Why am I not getting light streaks?
Are there any light sources? It could be as simple as that. If you don't have any actual light sources, then you're not going to get any light streaks. Also, is your shutter slow enough? So put it at 1/6 or up to 1/50 maybe, and move it. Move the camera as you're taking the photo. And as I say, if you're moving the camera to get those light streaks and your subject is blurry, increase your flash.
And what if half the photo is flashed and half's dark?
That means your shutter speed is too high. So your shutter is opening and it's really quickly shutting and the flash hasn't had time to fill the whole photo. So make sure it's below 1/250.
Or 1/200th, if
Yes.
that's your camera's maximum sync speed.
Exactly. So that was on camera flash. We will be looking at off camera flash. That'll be coming soon in another course. But hopefully this helped you get to grips with using your flash on your camera. It makes everything look nicer, cleaner, brighter. It's easier to edit, much easier to edit when you're using on camera flash well. So hopefully this was helpful for you and it's given you a bit more confidence to use flash.
Enjoy, have fun with it and experiment.